Beyond the Veil podcast is expanding. So take a look and listen as we grow.
New intro. Yeah, for the day. Yo, happy Father's Day, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Veil, an unusual podcast. We take you beyond the far reaches of the universe and back again, sharing the universal message of truth, fact-finding, reversing the blinding, showing you the silver lining. Yeah.
How to protect your mind and restore your sight.
Yes, indeed. I'm your host, Blue Fire Chieftain, also known as Jay.Drewz, and a host of other titles and names. And my co-host, Black Sun Shaman.
I wish I had a wardrobe. Bah, 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 bah. Bah, 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 bah. Bah, 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 bah.
Yo, yes, thank you. So, yeah, back again. What we got for him today is going to be, super interesting.
Yes, indeed.
We're talking about what frequency, direct energy weapons, production,
Purpose,
yes, and protection. What a befitting episode for today. All you fathers out there, shout out to you, all the great fathers.
Happy Father's Day, y'all.
Yes, indeed. Doing the best you can and learning to do better day by day. Today we're going to bring you some information, how you can protect yourself and your family. You know, from the unseen to the seen.
Yeah, with these increasing solar storms, geostorms, and the wavering in the Schumann resonance, you know, and not to mention the towers and the potential effects that they could be used or not used for. You know what I mean? It's definitely time for us to deal with how to protect ourselves and our family in the case of, you know, natural or not so natural occurrences that we would need that type of protection from radiation and from frequency in general. Frequency, what do you call that? Direct frequency confrontation.
Absolutely, man. Where you want to kick it off from today, man? I know you have been doing some research for a while on this. I've dibbled and dabbled a bit, become a little more focused and serious on it as of late. So,
I mean,
I guess wherever you want to start.
I guess a good place to start out with is as frequency productions have changed. This is the production part. As frequency productions have changed over the years, as we've gone from one type of energy conveyance or radio conveyance or digital conveyance or etheric conveyance, as we've changed these methods, I've noticed that over those changes came different ailments to humanity that happen to heighten at the shifting of these particular information systems. You know, and not to say that they had one to do with each other knowingly or there was some malicious intent, but just to notice that with the increase of frequency also came new and different viruses, new and different cancers, new and different mental issues to our overall population. So, you know, that's a good place to start if you want to do your own research to discover whether that be true or not. But this is these different productions along with the onset of the most recent, which is the towers. I've noticed that these towers that are going up to widen our information capabilities and to create new coverage areas. I've noticed that they have more energy potential than they actually need. In order to sustain coverage areas which they're trying to reach, it would take a lower frequency than the wiring and boarding that these towers have. So that's a good place to start.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you've heard if you've watched our program before, you have heard us discuss various forms in which frequency or sonic warfare has been demonstrated. I just brought up some information I wanted to share briefly with the origins of frequency warfare. Um, if you all can see this, let's see. Some police forces have used sound cannons against protesters. For example, during the 2009 G20 Pittsburgh summit, the 2014 Ferguson unrest, and the 2016 Dakota Access Pipeline protests, among others. Of course, that among others is very broad. And I don't want you all to lose sight of the seriousness of this because, like I said, in the past we've discussed it. I've given personal experiences, things that I was told by uh, someone that was in a leadership role along with me. They were actually more in a supervisory role to supervisors, and myself at the time was a supervisor or leader, uh, leading a group of canvassers and protesters, paid direct action personnel. Just like your man Donald Trump has been trying to explain to you all, you're seeing right now in California in action, when you got people with tools and weapons that have been funded and trained, and in some instances, their training came prior to their employment with whatever the outfit is called now. These people were already, serious individuals with some type of paramilitary training, cross training. You know, a lot of them keeping in great physical condition, but then they're just given various forms of tools to escalate unrest when there is a direct civil action or a protest, as some people call it, to instigate or agitate those who are in uniform, first responders, or emergency positions to engage with them on a further physical type of level. Um, but oftentimes, what the result of that is entering into a zone where you're being targeted um, with different forms of weapon capabilities that are unseen. Some of them come from towers, some of them come from transmitters, and some of them come from, as they describe, a hand cannon, which usually looks like a handheld battering ram with a shield, that concave shield that bends out towards you as the subject. And oftentimes it looks like there's a microphone or a transmitter in the center of that convex or concave, I'm probably saying the opposite, sorry, concaved uh, shaped shield, and it shoots sound waves that
You
can
know, you
bend,
know,
bend the water in your body because the majority of your body is made of water. Um, Go ahead.
you know, what's interesting to know, water can freeze, so it can change its molecular structure to the point that it can't move. I'm reminded of a scripture from the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti. Okay, and I was looking for it in the background, but I was unable to find it. But if you go to the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti, there's a point at which the hairy barbarian was coming from the north to overtake a pyramid and to go down into the ground and to get to the people who had been controlling society. They were in an uproar.
Mm.
And at that point, Tahuti used his staff to freeze the people. He used his staff, he said, to shoot a ray that froze the people in their tracks And then when he took the vibration off and they were able to move again, they cowered and started worshiping him as God
Mm.
in that particular section of the Emerald Tablets. And just in the description that you were just giving me, it brought me back into remembrance of that. Um, because, like I said, if you change if you change the molecular structure of water, it will you can change it to the point that it turns into a vapor, or you can change it to the point that it turns into a solid. And with a body that is predominantly water, and the fact that frequency changes the molecular structure of fluids,
Yes.
it gives more credence to the story, or more of an understanding position. It was like ancient crowd control. Tahuti would have been performing ancient crowd control with the staff and the vibration because they were riotous. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
and in an uproar. So to stop it, he used the staff and vibration.
Wow. Yeah. 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 So this, and that's in antiquity. So we're talking about pre-ancient times. We're talking
Mhm.
about olden days, as some would say.
Right.
Um,
Back in the
right.
back. Like,
Yeah. Way in the way back in the long ago. I can't remember
yeah,
what
yeah.
movie that's from, but
In the land before time.
in the land
That's
before time, which is here.
mhm.
But that's another topic for another day, or we could work it in. Who knows? We'll see. But you should know, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So as what they call time elapses or moves on, moves forward, they simply bring back great ideas of old in revamped forms. So this is not anything that we should be thrown aback by. It's just it's a known fact that it exists. Check out blacksunshaman.com, www.blacksunshaman.com. Get your products, your cleanses, your
Your
health
EMF
right.
protection,
Yeah,
frequencies, and stones and pathology.
yeah, yes. So EMF, you said EMF protection. So for those who are not aware yet, EMF stands for electromagnetic frequency.
Hmm.
This is what North Korea has threatened to hit the United States with. This is what other countries have used to black out their own cities and neighboring country cities. What our military tests from time to time to make sure that that system is fully intact and working properly. Uh, they don't usually do it to where it affects the main cities, but that capability is always there.
And my priesthood on the sun use it from time to time to remind certain agencies that they're still in control.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the end justifies the means. The end is knowledge. Knowledge is power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Quoting Razcast, hooked to one of his songs. He took some famous quotes from some other famous folk. I believe it's attributed to Ben Franklin. I'm not certain that that's accurate, even though there is a citation or two online that credits it to him. But yeah, knowledge is power. But he didn't say knowledge is power. He said power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we're looking at power in immense power at that in the hands of some very corrupt entities. So you got to be ever aware, not live in fear, but you just got to be ever aware and make concessions for yourself and your family
Yeah,
in case they should enact their authority in that manner.
and then to throw some weight on the other side of the balance scheme, balance weight, or the balance, to throw some weight on it to make it even. As much negative potential as these vibratory frequency technologies have, there is the other side of the coin. those same vibrational systems can be utilized to heal and produce frequencies that energize, produce frequencies that purify, produce frequencies that I mean, the possibilities are endless. Just to address some of them, you know what I'm saying? We have William. Oh goodness, William Reich. I'm gonna go get his name at some point during this, but William Reich, I believe it is. He was utilizing frequency
Yeah,
to
right.
heal inoperable ailments. And then his machines ended up being illegal, so you can't make his machine, even though it's very simple to make. They use a layer of metal. Then what is that? What is Brillo pad? Brillo pad is a
Steel wool.
steel wool. So they use a layer of metal, then you use a layer of steel wool, and then you place a layer of metal on top of that, and then you make a box out of that. But you can't do that anymore. I'm just telling you what his process. That's what he did. You know what I mean? And then he would have people to go into that box, and when they would go into that box, there were many people being healed of inoperable ailments because of the raising of frequency that would occur in those boxes. And just in light of that, if sickness can be caused by frequency, then wellness can be achieved by frequency too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what he was dealing with is what the powers that be are manipulating or putting to use as well. The electromagnetic spectrum. Um, so, when you're dealing with frequency warfare, a more precise definition is military or intelligence operations that use all or parts of the electromagnetic spectrum: radio waves, microwaves, millimeter waves, infrared, visible light, ultraviolet light, X rays, and gamma rays to detect actions or communications, protect against enemy activities, etc. They can also use these to channel attacks using that energy. Okay. Um, like we just went over, some of the police forces have used sound cannons. I've seen on the military channel in the past um, when they developed that weapon. And so it makes it really interesting question, like why are there still police shootings? When you possess when you possess a weapon that can be non-lethal to lethal, like you can turn it up, you can turn it down. You could shoot it through the walls of a house and fold up individuals, plural, in order to kick the door in and just run in and hog tie them and carry them out safely. Or you could fold them up to the point where their internal organs basically collapse or implode.
And then the natural side of an issue such as this is there are there are if you put metal in the microwave, it'll cause micro explosions. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have heavy
Right.
metals in your system, and for whatever reason microwaves occur, natural or unnatural, you can get a natural microwave frequency that would activate such a response, or an unnatural one. But either way, you want those heavy metals outside of your body, especially with all the processed foods that we have going on. Processed foods are processed in large metal machines. So if they are off by a degree, or they're off, that those metal shavings will be in your food and be in your processed food, especially if it's being processed by big huge amounts in large machines. Your processing by hand is a much better process because you have less exposure to metal particulates being in your food. But with that said, your chlorophylls, your chlorophyll, your spirulina, uh, um, are excellent for getting those heavy metals. Are a binder like a Silogit or baking soda without the heavy metals. If you use baking soda, you want to make sure it doesn't have heavy metals, so you
Yeah.
can have those.
Food grade. You want food grade
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
baking soda.
and you take that, and then that helps to get those heavy metals out of your system. And then I'm not giving you no medical advice. If you're going to do this and you need medical advice, I suggest that you seek medical advice. I'm only telling you the methods by which I detox heavy metals from my own body, so I'm not subjugated to any microwave frequency that could be weaponized or natural.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then some of the things that you can be noticing symptoms of when you've been exposed to EMF weapons or direct energy weapons, they're capable of penetrating about zero point 0.5 millimeters into the body. So the electromagnetic waves could potentially access skin past the dermal layer, which contains blood vessels, nerves, and glands. The skin on the eyelids, for instance, is zero point 0.2 millimeters deep. Increased exposure times can produce skin burns and dermal damage. It's like being slow cooked from the outside, um, or from the inside out. It just depends on the degree of the.
The depth. So
Yeah.
if this could translate into unexplained heat, you would be able to check your temperature at this point, and you would not be overheating from the internal energy perspective, but you would feel a heat that was unexplainable on your skin, as if you had a fever or as if you were overheating, and that could be due to the depths of a weapon like that, and to the extent that it could cause actual skin irritations.
Mm, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's degrees of these. So, like, okay, I'll go and explore a little bit more. So, the use of focused electromagnetic or particle energy to damage or destroy targets. They operate by converting chemical or electrical energy into radiated energy and directing it at a target. This focused energy can degrade, neutralize, or destroy targets, often at a distance and with precision. Extremely accurate. Okay. High energy lasers, they call them HELS.
Hmm.
High power microwaves, HPMs. They use radio frequency waves to disrupt or damage electronic components. And then particle beam weapons. These beams are of charged particles, like electrons or protons, to damage targets. Focusing energy. D.E.Ws concentrate energy into a beam, allowing it to travel over significant distances. So you guys can take a look at that in your own time, do your own research. One thing I want to talk about though is radioactive. Yes,
Ready?
indeed. Oh,
Are we? Uh-oh.
my bad, y'all. We're replaying the beginning there, and
No
uh,
worries.
I forgot I had us up on another tab. So yeah, forgive that unprofessional action there. No, but yeah, these weapons have been around a while, and they've been developing this technology continually. But when you're dealing with radioactive materials left behind from attacks, um, some would say nuclear, right? Um, it's not completely hopeless depending upon the grade of the explosion in the weapon, right? But one of the things you're going to need for survival, since we're talking about protection, um, it's called potassium iodide, allegedly.
Hmm.
Hmm. Um, Allegedly, potassium iodide. Let me just pull this up if I can. Oh, what did I do? Okay. Something you wanted to say on that?
No, you just made me think of C60 and magnesium. Um, that was on when you said that, you made me think of C60 and magnesium needs to be added to their defense.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So How long do you take potassium iodide after a nuclear bomb? The duration of therapy, the FDA information on how long you should take KI or potassium iodide. It will protect for approximately 24 hours. It should be dosed daily until the risk no longer exists. So you have to assess your own situation depending on what develops. Um, but this is a compound that can be made on your stovetop. And it is also sold over the counter, but not in every drugstore, of course.
Yes, indeed. And then talking about easy home remedies, you made me think of shungite as well. Shungite is a stone that has EMF protection capabilities. Um, so if you get shungite, it's a stone is found in Russia predominantly. There's a lot of fake shungite out there, so try to make sure you do your due diligence on sourcing. And you can get shungite from me at specific times of the year. Right now, I only have like 2 or 3 stones, and I'm probably not going to sell those. So when I do get some shungite up, I'll make the announcement. But if you take shungite and you put it in your water, put 3 stones in your water, and leave it for a day or two, then the water will have taken on the protective EMF protective capability of the stone. And people use shungite water, and they also use shungite to protect on the back of the cell phones. They incorporate it into a paintable liquid, and they make stickers and things that you put on the back of your cell phone to protect from EMF. And there's also should I mention this one? Yeah, why not? There's
Shungite,
also,
isn't that what fell from space
yes,
in that meteorite that hit Russia several years ago?
yes, indeed. That it was that, and there was a green stone that also came as well.
Was
Uh,
that the tourmaline, or was that a
um, I I can't think of the name of it. It's pretty expensive now. It looks like green glass almost. It came
okay,
it came with it as well.
almost like kryptonite? Hmm.
Right. And interestingly enough, with some frequency protection. Not only did it come down, it came down with some frequency protection. So, you know what I
What's
mean?
where's Moldavite? What
That's
Moldavite?
it. That's it. Moldavite.
Okay, Moldavite.
That's
Yeah, all right.
your Moldavite. That's it.
Oh, this is the dose, you all. In case you're interested, adults 18 years and up take 130 milligram pill of potassium iodide, or 2 millimeters of liquid potassium iodide, or 2 tablets of 65 milligram potassium iodide. If you know you're going to be exposed to radiation, or have been, it will allegedly kill
Man,
you.
I seen this dude climb up on one of them towers, and he had to put on a special suit. He took a leaf up there with him, and he put the leaf on the side of the tower, and the leaf started sparking
Mm,
like it was frying the bio material.
hmm.
It's interesting.
That is interesting. Wow, very interesting. Ooh wee. What we got for him next, man?
Another preventative
Production protection.
another protection method before we switch. Turn off. I know it's hard for some people to do. Good Lord, some people need to sleep with a Murder She Wrote on, or you know what I'm saying, some TV in the background or something like that. So I know this one is going to be a tough one to experience, and this is for people who are super serious about protecting their frequency on that level. If you turn off your Wi-Fi router and use the hardwire Ethernet connection, that's better for your frequency. Even better than that, when you go to sleep at night, the big main switch in your house, in your power box.
You can continue. I'll be right back. I got my
Right
sinus.
on, right on. The big main switch in your power box. you can take that main switch in your power box and cut that off when you go to bed. When you cut that off when you go to bed, it deadens a lot of the frequencies around you so that your frequencies have time to rest like your body. Um, with frequencies persistently playing to your body from your TV to your cell phone to your radio to other devices that are running and projecting frequencies. With this going on all of the time, and your body being predominantly water, this means that you're taking on a change in your molecular structure that's damn near permanent, and you don't get any rest where your molecular structure is able to be at ease and operate in its purest form or operate in its not defensive state. In order for you to get that rest that you need for those frequencies to be up off you. This is why people have made it such a point in their spiritual development and awakening to take the time to go out into the woods. Is because of the freeing of frequency that they can get there. And they say they connect to nature. They're able to find themselves and find their own frequency and establish themselves in their frequency enough that they have sustained it or solidified their frequency. Then they go back in the world refreshed and renewed. This is why people have retreats that are out in the wilderness. This is even a esoteric secret that's hidden in plain sight. When you deal with any prophet or any great leader of any religious organization's text, they always have in common a fast, or they always have in common some type of pilgrimage in order to develop an awareness that comes from them being away from the frequencies that may impede them. For us, unnatural frequencies, and for those who journey away from people into cave systems and stuff like that, they're even trying to get away from other people's bioelectric fields long enough to determine what their bioelectric field is without the manipulation and molecular changes that come from other biofrequencies and synthetic frequencies. So get in other words, turn that shit off. Turn that stuff off long enough for you to get some rest for your frequency body.
Makes sense. Makes sense since piezoelectricity rules the day.
Mm-hmm. Piezoelectric.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed, man. So that's good stuff. Sorry, I had to step away. I've been dealing with these, seasonal symptoms. So,
Me
anyhow,
too. Me too.
I had to step away and get right for a moment. But yeah, man, talked about cave systems. So yeah, you always want to be with a cave system at least to the back of you. You want to stream near there, juxtapositional to that situation. Reason being, you can see any and all threats that are trying to approach. It's just like if you were getting jumped in a barroom brawl, you want to put your back in the corner and pick off the on oncoming attackers. And if you can't, then you want to um, collapse so that they're hitting themselves, not you, as you crawl out to safety. If you can
and
maneuver that way.
and you can't you can't taste poison if you consistently ingesting it.
Yes, absolutely.
You have to get off of the poison long enough to, one, be able to taste it, and to, two, know the effects that it's having in your body. If you think that the poison's effects are normal because you've been experiencing them for years and have accepted them as norm, you'll never know that they're poisoning you until you come from up under the poison long enough. Just like abuse. A person doesn't know that they're being abused until they back up long enough to realize what's happening.
True indeed. Well put. Well put. Well put. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, like, share, subscribe, join our locals on rumble.com/ deeper dives dialogue UNL or J.Drewz 47. That's J.D.R.E.W.Z. But it's for both of us. I just started this. Some of these, you know, platform connections as we were just getting started with the podcast. As you know, we've been with you about 2 years strong now,
Yeah,
consistent.
and
We're
and
trying to
and
become ever more consistent.
so
Yeah,
excited, Jay. We extended to Facebook, so
absolutely.
now we include Facebook in our streams every Sunday between 12 and 1 o'clock. So that is exciting. We are expanding, and we have found a way to include our Facebook family.
Awesome. Zach Lee, is that how you say it? Man, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's take a look. Put you all in my Awakening Consciousness Discord channel. Can link if you want. Okay. Thank you for the invite. We'll take you up on that, Zach Lee. Thank you. Um, yeah, man. Thank you so much. Like, share, and subscribe, man. Get the word out. We're growing. We're expanding soon into, book writing, possibly short film production,
Oh man.
screenplay.
Whew.
Um, any way we can get the message out, and we appreciate your support, love, and
And,
dedication.
and I came into the awareness that y'all want to support and y'all would like something in return. So he did say that that book is coming up, and
Indeed,
whew, you're gonna love it.
indeed, indeed. I believe there's going to be, not I believe, I know he and I both have at least two books we're working on. So, and then every time we talk, there's a book. That message, I say that with all humility and sincerity at the same time. Um, okay, let's see here. More comments. All right, all right. Yes, yes, yes.
So yeah, that shungite water and those shungite stones. Make sure you cut those power boxes off at night if you can stand it, or at least have your Wi-Fi router off. And if you're running something, run it straight through hardwire Ethernet cord. That way, your molecular body can get a rest from the consistent bombarding frequencies of everyday life.
What he said. Yes, those bombarding frequencies, man, is more than a notion. I mean, it's like being in a boxing match and being hit with a bunch of short, choppy body blows.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're landing your headshots and you seeing the results of the headshot on your opponent, you might not be feeling the results of those body shots right away. But every time you go back to your corner to sit down, you're like, ooh, 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 what was that? Oh, he hit me that many times in the same spot. You know what I mean? And it's taking a toll, a slow toll. So we
You you
definitely want
made
to.
you made me think about something. The AI-19. So AI is 19. You know what I'm saying? The when when you deal with that AI and all of its variants, you know what I'm saying? The effects of radiation. Do we still have that picture available with the effects of radiation? If not, I can
You,
just
you know what?
get
Yeah. It was further back in.
okay.
See if I
So
can pull.
interesting note in production in the production of these frequencies. When you're dealing with radiation frequencies, it's amazing the symptoms that you face with these different levels of frequency exposure. Some of them have to do with the lungs and the ability to breathe and inflammation of the lungs. You have vomiting and feeling sick, and the you have the inflammation of the lungs, And what was the other one? There was
Oh,
another.
headaches. Did you say
Yep,
headaches?
yep, yep. Headaches. Hard to breathe because of
Vomiting.
vomiting. And then I noticed that those symptoms also have pertinence to something else. And I also noticed if you put side by side the unrolling of a specific frequency wave pattern system, and you put it alongside the sicknesses or viruses that developed recently and all of their variants, the unfolding of the system for frequencies is also unfolding at the same time as that sickness. And as it unrolls and increases its use, so does variance arrive in accordance with that. Potentially, maybe, I don't know. Look it up yourself.
Indeed.
And to
Yes.
cover my behind.
Yeah, as I was told, like I said back in, was it 2012? During an election cycle, canvassing, candidate shall remain nameless. I'll just say he won the election. But that's when I got to peep, the western side of the same bird in the political arena. And I got to peep the tactics and the strategies. And that's when I realized that we were not witnessing organic conflict. Everything we were witnessing was orchestrated and staged. And even though there was real results, as in casualties and physical injuries and even deaths, on both sides of what would look like the political aisle, as we're told to call it, um, these things were very much dramatized, pre-planned, orchestrated, and staged. And unfortunately, shout out to Alex Jones. I don't give a fuck what you think about him. Shout out to Alex Jones. Um, he just made a very bad word choice. But what he was trying to say instead of hoax was staged events, because there was real actual consequences as a result of those staged events. The word hoax came across a bit insensitive and disingenuous to some, and
Yeah,
they took
like mistake.
that advantage to try to financially or commercially damage his career. You
Yeah,
know,
like mistakenly putting a real bullet in a Hollywood gun during a during a movie scene, and then somebody actually dying.
that would be a great way to make an example of somebody who spoke out of turn and should have stayed in their lane in Hollywood, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Tie up
Hmm.
some of his time and chip away at some of his finances,
Hmm.
put him in check.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, that goes on all the time. We see it more often than not. Uh, these are not organic situations.
And
The
then
Diddy
and then
trial, the timing of it,
and
right?
then in light of frequency warfare, have you heard we deal with the crowd control weapons that they use?
Correct.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah. They're being used. They're being practiced, put in practice. Sorry, in California, but I mean, there's a somewhat justification. I'm not going to state any opinion or side on that entire subject matter because this isn't that platform. However, um, yeah, I mean, you take to the streets in support of potentially bad actors that came over here under false identities or a blind eye being turned at the border. And it's not to condemn uh, people who have shared this land mass with our ancestors since the days of long, long ago and the way, way back. But at this point in time, the narrative of control has shifted, right? So you have to be aware of that climate. Um, you would never see, um, you would never see, let's just say, you would never see the reverse happening where they'd be standing with chocolate faces um, across the other side of that line called a border, and let's say military or cartel presence was there to quell the unrest. It wouldn't be wise for chocolate faces to chip away at concrete and asphalt and launch frozen bottles of water or anything like that at their uniformed people. Let's put it that way. That's going to make it bad for everybody, and everybody with common sense knows that. You know what I mean?
What do you do in what do you do in times like that? You bring out the military, you bring out the National Guard, you implement what do you call that when the government exercises their authority over people's movement?
Marshall?
Marshal.
No.
That's what they call it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're already under maritime, and I'm not going to draw the conclusion for you, audience. I'm not going to do the legwork for you. Do your own research on the correlation between maritime and martial and understand what time it's been. Stop acting alarmed when you see the exercise of the flex take place. The flex has been in place. Okay? And understand like the mindset of a group of people that would come in somebody else's house and change the rules, okay, and then say, hey, let's let these other people come over and spend the night, and hey, you know what, let them just live with us. All right, we're the new daddy and mama. Okay, you don't think that they can just decide when they're going to decide, they can decide when they're going to change up that rule too? Like, one says open, and then the other one says nope, shut it down completely. Um, and the game is played.
If I saw black people and white people coming together against the oligarchical capitalist 12 family bloodline, then I would try to make them
You
white
said a
people.
mouthful.
I would try
Whoa.
to make them white people look, white people and black people fight each other. Because if they both come to fight me, then I'm gonna lose.
And yeah, indubitably, and rightfully so. Most certainly. But
Hey,
when you the granddaddy and the grandmommy, this shit gets old, and I don't want to tell people what to think or to do, right? Ever. I want you to make your own decisions. I want you to think for yourself. But come on, man. Come on, man. I mean, really? Out here, we got video of dudes in tears. The one dude's supposed to be a teacher, and he's crying about them coming in, and the kids are citizens, and the parents are not. Nobody told you to do that. And check out Michael Francesi's podcast, man, and look at the episode I shared with you last night. The episode was about the movie called Cry Freedom. It's about the real story of the missing children. The man, I can't remember if his name is Kevin Smith. I apologize, but look into the story behind that movie. They ran 70 operations, 70 stings in Colombia and other South American countries. Okay, These children and oftentimes were approaching the border unaccompanied by any adult relative. And I'm not saying that this is the only narrative, if you catch what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. But 85,000 of them, and then it turned into 300,000 on top of that, were possibly unaccompanied by a parent or adult family member. And even in certain instances, had they had been accompanied, that adult family member or parent would have trafficked them in the United States of America because they were being released to foster homes that were a part of a network that was known to be involved in child and human trafficking.
There were calls that they were receiving from what they were considered Mexican CPS, okay, for these children. They were released to the CPS only to be called back later to discover that this CPS organization did not exist.
Now, this billionaire who wrote this film to raise the awareness about what's been going on called out a specific political regime. And I hate to disappoint a lot of you, but it wasn't the orange one. And I'm going to leave it at that. I've been trying to say to certain family members and friends, I am not a defender or advocate for any particular political party at this point.
They
But
all family to me.
they are. But there is one side that is opening borders and doors so that it's easier to get the money. And there's the other ones, whether it's a game or not, remains to be seen, that's busting them all, shutting them all down. And when they go missing, it's because they hold some of the inventory back from the gnosis of those who are running these stings. They get hip to who's running the sting because they have to look a certain way and they can't have a certain body type and they can't have, certain markings on their necks and faces and arms. They have to look the type of a playboy, jet setter, lustful, greedy
Hey,
businessman.
one of our viewers just said, "Well, what does this have to do with frequency warfare?"
Ooh,
Great,
I'm gonna let you go ahead
great.
and get into that one.
Have you ever heard of sleeper cells? You should do the research on that. That's a good and interesting line of research for you to go do a study on. And there is also instances that are worth an examination of recent what do you call that, mass shootings that you should go and review the circumstances behind. One of them, a man said he heard a voice in his head, and the voice in his head told him to go shoot up a mall. When he shot up the mall, one of the people in the mall happened to have developed a system that would provide people with water out of the air, and he was ex-military and so forth and so on. And he happened to be shot in that in that shooting, and that's interesting. But he said he heard a voice in his head. And then another interesting point about the setup of these towers, while everyone was locked down at their different locations, it's interesting to note that within the towers of churches, within hospitals and different locations, new energy reading systems and energy projection systems went up into these places that were uninhabited while we were at home on lockdown. So, oh, and there's
Oh
this.
yeah, yeah, the schools especially. Yeah, they call them, they still call them in service days, where the kids don't show up, but the teachers do, and they don't really have no meetings. Most of the time, they're in one room in the building, and then the janitor staff, allegedly, along with some other people in white vans,
Mm,
show up and they spray and do some stuff, and then the following week, the kids always get sick. It's like clockwork. They always get sick unless they've been unvacationed.
yeah.
If they've been unvacationed, they might get a little like like histamine reaction, or like they might get mildly affected by the illness, but usually the ones that have been injected at some point, they come down with full fledged and they take it home to their parents and their siblings, and like it's usually real bad. And then they announce some new name of a type of influenza or something, right? It's just starting to become real common, and y'all just accepting it. But we should go in the sleeper cell real quick, just a little bit. When you
Okay.
have some person that's been, I don't want to use the simple term, but I also don't want to be too wordy. Um, they're programmed to have a response to certain stimuli. Okay, preconditioned, I guess you could use as another term, by causing a trauma response over and over. And then once that trauma response is mastered by their
No did.
handler
No
or
did.
the yes, it was Diddy. He used the same technique, and so did Harley Pasternak, the guy who was handling Kanye West, and several others. Aaron Carter, who's people need to really look into why that individual is no longer with us, and why all these people in Hollywood started dying in bathtubs. No Whitney. Um, but yeah. So they're be conditioned to have a reaction to certain stimuli, and of course, while they're in the care of operatives, I mean, operatives have all kinds of other alternate careers. Like some of them were doctors before they became operatives, right? Some of them were psychologists before they became operatives, or while working as operatives, they went back to school or were educated within the program. So, I mean, these things shouldn't be odd to us. That if you got something implanted, let's just say, for example, when you went for a dental x ray while you were asleep, and an audible but only to you stimuli triggers a response, like shoot all of these people, and then your mind starts to hallucinate because let's say that there's another trigger that stimulates a neural center in the brain to make certain images appear right as that audible stimuli takes place. So they don't see human beings. Let's say they might see Martians.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it a little light in that
Mm-hmm.
part of it. So they're in the video game and they got to shoot the Martians, and now they've completed the level, and they don't understand why the police are yelling at them when they come to from this hallucinogenic state to get on the ground and put their hands behind their head to drop their weapon or they're going to shoot. And it's funny because based upon even the ethnicity of the shooter, they may or may not make it to court. Let's just say that. And that's to create an image for the public to debate
Or
over.
or they were military previous to their
Oh, that's always helpful.
the,
Absolutely.
they were military previous to their
Because then who's to say at which point the training took place or programming or preconditioning took place? Especially if they were former special ops. And then they're going to get a form that says that they suffered from whatever, and then you're not going to hear about them again because
ever.
they're going to go away to a certain type of lockup, and then they're going to release them, but not into the public. They're going to just send them off somewhere else. But yeah, and then it's interesting when the same victims and their same family members with different names, the victims and the family members, are at the different live interviewing stage after one of those traumatic events. And when you have recorded proof, video record, and audible record, and people still choose not to believe what you're telling them or what someone is telling them along those lines. And, oh, you're so insensitive. You're trying to say that this didn't happen. No, that's not what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is that the same actors created the same event in multiple places, and you missed the fact that they literally gave interviews. But I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna leave that alone
You know
because
it's
I don't have a video to play, so I'm gonna leave that alone.
It's interesting to note here that the heart operates on a certain bandwidth of activity, meaning it will not exceed or go beyond. It will not exceed or go below a certain frequency output in its natural state. That also means that the mind has a certain bandwidth of operation that it stays within the parameters of, meaning that it can go to a certain height or a certain low, but not exceed that point. So potentially, if you put a frequency on um, a similar bandwidth, um, if you put a frequency on those bandwidths, then you potentially have the capability to input a direct effect to those centers of operation. Now, I'm just saying the brain and the heart because those are the most obvious ones, because people have heart attacks and strokes and stuff like that oftentimes when they're communicating about certain things and gathering crowds. But other than that, there are other places in the body that's also affected by that has frequency bandwidths: the liver, the intestines, the lower nature. All of them have a bandwidth of function that they operate on that only naturally occurs unless it's synthetically created for whatever reason.
Absolutely. I mean, in some instances, feeding off of the crowd takes on a whole new meaning. When you had COVID-19, 6 feet spacing, that still really wasn't far enough. Because when you have someone attempting to develop in real time an aerosol mRNA genetic altering, an aerosol, okay?
Wait,
An aerosol.
radiation damages the genetics too. Did you know that?
It lowers the immune system. It lowers the T cell count, does it not? Or white blood cell count?
Yes, it
Rather.
does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. My
So
goodness.
all of that taking place at once. I mean, why would everyone in that area not get sick? So if you have a speaker, for example, or someone on a rostrum, a podium, that energy, depending on the way that people are seated or standing, is going to move that energy that direction constantly, perpetually.
Oh, you know what they said, that a lot of those waves that they had of sickness when they did have them was because people were going to concerts and spreading
And
the sickness at concerts
and in church.
and in church. Yep, concerts in church. Yep.
Yeah, not to pick on the church, but that's what was
Oh, and
happening.
or they would say Travis Scott was doing a ritual, and that's what happened. Or they would say that whoever else was doing some ritualistic show on stage, so that's why people went crazy and started acting all delirious and dying and stuff.
But that was the conscious community saying that, right?
Yep. That was them. That was them.
Not saying that they were incorrect,
Not at all.
but
Just
pointing to that at that time, interestingly enough, and then some did point out the other rituals that were taking place in the political arena. Um, you know, the hypocritical irony of Minnesota. I'm gonna just say that Minnesota and now California, and not being able to handle comparison with January 6th. Okay, you get where I'm going with this?
mm-hmm.
How do you not see that as a moral equivalent, if nothing else? Your interpretation, while you got a guy standing at the podium saying we the people is the elected government, not we the people. He's saying we the people was the oligarchy. Uh-oh. Is my volume going in and out? Okay.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So
And then I was
if that's an admission, what was the problem with January 6th when the other part of the document says in the event that it becomes tyrannical, if oligarchy is a negative thing to most, if not all, what are you actually saying? And then you called it an insurrection, which is a term associated with slave revolts. I'm going to say it over and over again. So now they're calling the same thing in California right now, in Los Angeles, insurrection. Because the people are saying,
our
we don't.
signal, our signal is messing up for some reason.
I noticed when I
Our
went down
signal is
that.
going in and out, and
I
we're
noticed when I
moving
went down that
slow.
path.
Oh, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But
We're
yeah,
bouncing back now. We're bouncing back.
okay. But yeah, I mean, how many times does the same playbook get played? And what's the real distraction? Is California the real distraction, or is the Diddy trial the real distraction? Because we still ain't got no word on Epstein. We still ain't got a list. Still don't got a list. We got inferences, implications, insinuations, but no fucking list, right? Excuse my French.
Because you know why? Because they're terrified that of the removal of half of Hollywood and three-quarters of the governing cabinets. That's what they're afraid. They're afraid to say that these were human trafficking corporations, allegedly.
And what if they're all one and the same? I mean, with the masks that the former field operatives of a certain intelligence association showed on social media in recent years and broke down, like, what is MI6? What is FBI? What they have this same missions and objectives.
No, 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 no.
So I mean, ain't they all related too? I mean, ain't Brad Pitt related to?
Now they say one of those organisms. I said organisms, organizations
Mm-hmm, you said it right. Parasitic organisms. I mean, organizations.
may.
Oh, now they want a buffer.
Yeah, parasitic. So one of them was created to. Yeah. Now, one of them was developmentally directed to take on to hunt down a certain group of individuals. You know what I'm saying? That's what the foundation of the very foundation of their organization was to hunt down a group of individuals. I would dare say that they called them at the time messiahs. They were messiah hunters.
What didn't they start out with the act that gave birth to the RICO Act with one man that was like Black Superman? Because all the white women wanted him and they wanted to go wherever he went, and he married one and they really hated him then, and then he would do things like speed through a state and get stopped by a trooper, and then ask the trooper how much the fine for speeding was in his sports car that they couldn't really catch with their cars anyway. And they tell him it was $75, and he hand him 150, and he say, "Well, sir, I told you the fine is only 75. I can't give you change for this." And he said, "Don't, no need. I'm coming back through the same way I came. Meaning I'm going to be speeding in the opposite direction, so you don't have to stop me next time because you ain't going to be able to catch me anyway. So I'll stop this one time as a courtesy to find out how much I owe for this offense." They didn't know what to do with that mindset, right? So whenever you get that mindset, it appears, and you have a certain complexion that's not from the selection or the protection, and you feel like money, like the Bible tells you, answers all things. They're like, nah, you taking that too literally in word, right? So now you can't travel across state lines, even with people who want to go with you, if we know that you're going to be having sacred energy exchanges with them,
Hey
whether you
man,
want to call them F
why they
offs or
put
whatever.
why they put that pyramid on the dollar like it got something to do with their culture?
It does.
Oh, what do we got to do with them?
Jubal, Tubal.
Mm. Oh, that's the house that after they hit them over the head, that's the house they stole.
Right. They stole the house and they were still in the basement until some other chocolate folks decided to put them in the space that was removed. They kept the capstone for themselves and they called themselves the Council of Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they set up gatekeepers to protect you from being able to walk in the room and find out who's really behind, the pale or lighter face that gets the blame.
Mm. What was the name of that book you was talking about? White Hood, Black Hand. What was it called?
Okay. So we're talking about Franz Fanon's Black Skin, White Mask.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's why I say, what's the real distraction? Let's just go into a little bit of facts. Okay, so you know who owns the Aleister Crowley brand?
No.
Sean Carter.
I was about to say, is it Jay-Z? I was about to come out. Is
Yeah.
it? Because that makes all
he
the sense.
owns the rights. He bought the rights to the estate. As far as I know, I could be mistaken on that. Don't quote me, but I believe that's what I read when I was looking into it. He owned, yeah, the rights to the books, the publishing. Um, and
Now,
so then who's his good friend that he tried to distance himself from recently, right? It's Sean Combs. So Sean is Sean, right? And so Sean Combs, Brother Love, also known as Puffy, and a host of other monikers, right? Um, is doing rituals. And so they tried to make these freak offs sound like big old orgies of a sort, right? But what really is going on is the same reenactment with different S workers of a masculine form.
now, wait a minute. Have we ever seen this done before, Jay? Have we ever seen these rituals performed?
Aleister Crowley.
And then what was Mr. Hefner doing in those grottos?
Before we get to Hefner, let's deal with the one that started it in the modern era. Crowley had a male Egyptian fun boy that he practiced his techniques with. And it was later what? It was later named Enochian sex magic. And from there you had systems like Magica that people still practice to this day in secret and not so secret. And then you had the Temple of the Golden Dawn or Ordo Templi Orientalis. And then you had Thelema, which was the way or the will, rather, the will that gave birth to a certain mindset within the Thule Society in Germany. All right, so we're still dealing with bloodlines. This is where we're creeping up on. And so when you got someone in a position of a religion that's not understood widely by a culture, let's say America actually has a culture outside of so-called black culture, okay? Which is, it's interesting because it's debatable, right? And I won't say that there is no other culture, but there are subcultures. that are not as popular.
What you talking about? Typhonian subcultures?
Oh, of course, yeah, Typhonian, but I mean, within that you have branches. Shout out to Candace Owens. She exposed one of the branches called Frankism, right?
Mm-hmm.
But all of them stem from a satanic mindset. So they can be called Satanism broadly, but they're not the true religion that was founded by the LeVay father and sons and daughter family. But Crowley was definitely one of their master teachers, right? So Crowley, the people really look into him. He wanted to create an antichrist child physically by impregnating a woman from California, and he never named her, right? It was, he just saw in the vision it was a woman that had to be from California, and he had to impregnate her in order to bring the birth of the antichrist into fruition. So Cassie and Diddy and oh, want to have your baby, and if people follow the trial, I'm not going to go into all that. That's not what we're here for. Even though I've been saying that this fall was coming for him, um, it starts to make eerie, eerie good sense to understand that that's the role that he holds in the organization. So when they're saying Rico, and then all these things are coming up during the trial that seemingly have nothing to do with proving Rico, it's because there are some things that are being said a certain way that if they be said in a real way, you would say these were rituals and this was our religion. You see what I'm saying? And that religion requires them to violate
Oh,
the RICO Act.
and for those who think, and for those who somehow think that we've gone
Possibly,
away from
allegedly.
frequency warfare, protecting yourself and everything like that, we have not. When you have lineages that are tied back to actual land and estates that are currently under someone else's rule that has made them very wealthy, you know what I mean, and made them seem to be at the cutting edge of the creation of religion, language, science, and mathematics, architecture, design, you never want the people to become aware that they are actually the owner. So, you would have Kanye and Kim Kardashian have children, and then Kanye to lose his mind almost to the point where he loses his life, and then his children are left to claim his estate.
But
Just the thought.
he lost his matriarch because some other celebrities referred him to a plastic surgeon who had a less than prime rating. And then when the result that they expected occurred that he did not expect, it seemed like he lost his mind because he lost his matriarch. Okay? And not to go down the whole litany of things that went wrong in his life for a season, right? I believe it was Diddy that introduced him to the alleged Armenian witch family that would have an interest in.
Now, wait a minute. If the matriarch left and then daughters were born, and then the father was no longer present for whatever reason, oh, they would be the new matriarchs of the line.
So that 64 mil that she gave him to get things back on track, that he turned into two to 4 billion some years later, after the fact that she moved on with Pete Davidson. Not going to talk about what his ethnic background is. Look into it for yourself. You got to understand the rituals that are taking place. And the man almost lost his mind because they said that they were doing things, rituals, you would say inappropriate sexual contact, excuse me. But they were doing rituals in front of a fireplace that the children were easily able to walk in on. And so he bought the house across the street. But that's just a power move. Like, I see you. Like, you know what I'm saying? But that's a whole nother topic. The frequency warfare aspect of this is what is Sean Combs, Sean Carter, Kanye West, all these people were mentioning. They deal with music, which is sonic, which is how many times have we listened to a lecture, a debate, a conversation, even an interview, a podcast talking about the attack on our minds through the music industry and a very specific genre of music. And then something makes me want to mention Kirk Franklin, but I don't know if we should save that for another one because he's merging the two. And they don't like it at all. And I don't know how I feel about it. I kind of find it entertaining and amusing. I can't lie. But maybe that's just.
But I think we do it. We do when we talking to each other. We do it all the time. We'll take a secular song and reconstruct the wording in a way that provides a more meaningful, more rich experience to the song. Rewrite it for righteous purposes. If it was spell work to begin with, by the time we're done it, we've reconstructed the spell work. You know what I'm saying?
But the spell work is always in the composition. And the man that was exposing that in the 70s, I don't remember his name right now. He disappeared. Yeah, he disappeared. He said what record labels he worked for and how they had sonic alchemists that were on a witchcraft level of knowledge, gnosis, that were casting the spells in the compositions. So when I heard Stomp, I had mixed emotions because the part of me that loves the funk was like, yeah. But the part of me that understood that he was sampling One Nation Under a Groove. Under a groove. That's another conversation. Under a groove. From the first band that ever produced a rhythm track that looped the beat that was dropped on the one and sent up to the sun and looped it back under. Zip, 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 zip. Right? So you send, anyway, I'm not going to go on the church side of things, but there's something there. There's something there. So now you got the One Nation under a groove, getting down just for the funk of it.
Nothing can stop us now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it was a brilliant flip of the lyricism. But once again, the spells are usually cast within the composition and not the lyricism. Now, there are some spells out there. That Gaga song right now, it's a spell.
So let's just briefly delve into that and just brush over it a little bit. Remember what we said earlier. If you have frequencies of operation that correspond to your heart, correspond to your mind, correspond to your liver, correspond to your lower nature, then if you put those frequency bandwidths in the compositional makeup of the music, then you directly affect. I wasn't in the mood till I heard that song. That song brought the tears out of me. That song made me angry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. You're right. You're absolutely correct. Now,
So that's what these men are masters of. Diddy, some would say, had no musical talent. Didn't make beats until maybe the middle of his producer year career, like career years, excuse me. Not saying he never made beats, but for the most part, he would say, you, and you, make a track about like that sounds like this composition, but I want you to flip this part of it and make it more airy and light bring the keyboards in, make it real dark, sample this track because I want that rhythm. Okay, then I want you to add additional drums and programming on the, the percussion, and he would have them put the stuff together. Okay, then he'd say, "Get me this artist, give me that artist, give me this artist," whatever the case may be. So it's not that he didn't have any musical talent; it's that he's not skilled in playing instruments or making tracks, right? But he would pay for the records, for example, to be put together by bringing in the artists and paying for the sampling rights and this and that. Yeah. So all I'm saying is this: he has that ear. Someone playing a track, oh, that's dope. Let me get that. Well, man, I was hoping to put that on him. No, let me get that. All right, so what? I mean, how much you want to pay me? Well, I ain't gonna pay you nothing. I'm gonna put my name on it. I'm gonna pay you under the table. You're gonna get paid on the back end, and I'm taking half your publishing rights as a finder's fee. That's what he learned from Clive.
Among the sex rituals.
Of course, but that's all one. It's all tied in. I don't want to say one and the same, but it's all tied in. That's how you make a star. That's how you make. That's how you make a small letter G God, and then you tell that God, you ain't nothing but a dog to me. I made you. I'll kill your career tomorrow. It's
I mean, and
that
that
dominance.
goes
That
back to
dominance.
something we addressed with getting in front of a crowd. If there's bioelectric qualities that can be transferred, which this is scientific, and you can go do the research. I'm not just making this up. Mirror cells, and there's also chemical conveyances that happen with you being so close biosphere that is created. So if people can feed off of this from being on stage, and the energy that they get from that causes their energy to go up, then when he's saying I made you and I can break you, he's speaking in terms of energy. He's not speaking in terms of he made you musically, because there are people who are
Right. Exactly.
majorly talented that don't have positions.
And some that were there and lost them because they almost lost their minds when they realized what was going to be required of them to be put in position. See, if people really, okay, if you really, I don't want to say people, that's so general. If we realize, wake up and realize, when Janet Jackson sits in an interview and says, "Oh yes, Stevland Morris, aka Stevie Wonder, that's our cousin. That's our first cousin." Oh, okay, and who else will we be surprised to find out you're related to that's famous? Well, there's Tracy Chapman, multi Grammy Award winner. There's Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, does the list have to keep going on for us to get the gravity of nepotism?
And before
And
you
I'm not
even
knocking
think,
it, because if your family is the shiznit, your family is just the shiznit. I mean, this ain't nothing to sneeze at. Samuel L., Tracy Chapman, Stevie Wonder. You're not going to sign those people. They're not going to make it on your roster anywhere in entertainment. You can't tell me that that's not going to happen, regardless, right? Okay, Snoop Dogg, Ray J, Brandy Norwood, Macomb, Mississippi. Now, who's to say they ain't related to the Jacksons? I don't know, but I'm just saying, who's to say they ain't? My point is simply, how do you break through that? Even, I don't care how talented you are, how do you break through that when I can say to you, when you come to me, oh, I'll just call my cousin to do that. I really don't need you. I mean, you're super talented. Well, God bless. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't stop. How many times I heard that? But you're not getting in. Not before my sister. Not before my bro. My real bro. My half bro. Jermaine Dupri. His dad. You know who his dad was? Michael Malden. You know who Michael Malden was tight with? Clive Davis.
I want to address this because I don't want them to get the wrong idea, and
But
I feel
let
like
me be careful. Tight had a relationship with business wise. Let me just put it that way. You see what I'm saying though? These people, these are all people that run in the same circles
I,
already.
I don't know what happened. Our signal has really been going nuts. I don't know if you've been noticing it, but it's really been
I've
going.
noticed it. Yeah, I've noticed it.
Okay. So I just want to say this because I don't want nobody to get the wrong idea, and I feel like this needs to be addressed.
Okay.
They don't own these rituals. These is perversions of older, more ancient philosophies, orders, sciences, architectural designs, mathematics, plays, even the overall storyline of the arcana that they use to rewrite all of their stories over and over again. You think Tyler Perry wrote something unique? No, I can show it to you in the arcana. You think any of these directors are writing anything new? No, they're not. They're getting their stories from the arcana and changing the characters and changing it around. And what they call something new is only them looking to the zodiacal chart, seeing what's going on in the stars, and then having a script written based on what's happening in the stars so it can be relatable to you.
Bro, I'm with you. I mean, why do you think Gothica, Sixth Sense, and The Stir of Echoes come out within the same calendar year? All dealing with dead people or people seeing ghosts or being ghosts communicating with the living, thinking that the living are the dead ones when they've passed on. Like that concept, they did that whole year. People need to look into that. Okay. Um, they'll come out with several possession movies in the same year. They'll come out with several gang violence movies back in the same year, or within the same span of years. They'll release them one after the other every 4 months. But these studios will turn down great projects, things that could be life changing projects in the form of film. They shut down Will Smith. He was trying to do a movie about the last king of Egypt, Taharka. He was trying to do Taharka. They shut it down.
Nipsey was trying to do Sebi.
But bro, how do they shut that down? You don't put it out anyway. But how many movies has he done since then? That time period? But that's that ritual. He spoke out about that. And they didn't get him for it until that Oscars. Keep my wife's name
Yeah.
out your.
Yeah. And then I got to say this too. Even if you go back to your first stolen versions, your first stolen Jesuit versions, and you get some hoodoo, and you get some Boudon, and you get some, you know what I mean? You get some the first stolen versions. You still are in a matrix, not natural. You're still in a and I know that's hard. And I'm talking to the advanced. This is not 101 material. This is not 103 material.
Right.
This is like 121. You know what I'm saying? This is like 130.
Yeah.
It's the class upstairs. Okay. Once you get to those, you still haven't got to the computer sciences natural. All computer chips, melanin, frequency warfare, all of these types of things were based on discoveries of natural systems that indigenous people had already mapped out before a dirty Moor ever handed it over to a Jesuit.
Facts. Absolutely facts. Facts. I mean, even the contracts that are used as the basic recording contracts, these are banking contracts. They're signing for a bank advance. and in return for that advance, they're giving their likeness, their persona, their personification, and personage, their vocal renderings, sound recordings, and stage performances for a sum of no less than 3, in some instances to 5 or 7 years, throughout the entirety and perpetuity of the universe ad
Jay,
infinitum.
Jay, the reason when they did them military discoveries of how to remote view and that the soul was real and quantum entanglement words. Did you notice the funny course of events to follow that Scientology then became the religion? Okay, you back with me. So
Excuse me.
did you notice that after the military made the discoveries of the soul, remote viewing, and all of that, and released the documents to the public, you can go look at those documents yourself. After they did that, Scientology became the church of and Scientology is the only group that I know of that does contracts beyond this lifetime into other lifetimes. So you can, after you die, if you there are people who come now. This is you can look. I'm not making this up. You got to go check
Oh, I'm
yourself
familiar.
and
No,
see.
I'm familiar with this. I know.
So they numbers that when you die, when you come back and reincarnate in your next life, you have the numbers and the thing, and you come back in your next life and you pick up your tools to continue out your contract through Scientology. Just in light of contracts, and them trying to.
Yeah, yeah. So there goes another one of those names that came up with the rest of those charlatan masters. L. Ron Hubbard. Um, but yeah, man, we'll get into that further here in the near future. Trust and believe. But that's who. All of them are branches of the same house. Um, the checkered floors and everything. But we gonna get into it. We gonna
I
get
know that
into it.
we went way past, so I know that we're
Yeah,
about to end. So on this ending note, I would just like to say, this is just a random saying. If our enemy was a blank sheet of paper, our common enemy, our common enemy was a blank sheet of paper, then they would be a ballpoint pen drop on the paper, and the rest of us would be the rest of the white sheet of paper. So make sure that you protect yourself from frequencies through using the methodologies that we've provided here. Also protect your line, protect your spirit through all of the methodologies and from all of the enemies that we made you aware of today in this video. Thank you for joining us on Facebook and over
yes.
here. And I'm glad that you hung out with us, and like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you. Like, share, subscribe. Join our locals on rumble.com/ Jay.Drewz47 with a Z, or Deeper Dives Dialogue UNL. Peace. Love
Peace.
y'all. Thank you for joining us. Yes, indeed.